I'll hit it now, so then that way Dimitri has less to chop off.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome here to our Zoom room to our monthly contributor campaign, ongoing conversations around deep engagement and what that will make possible. This is part of a series of meetings that we have. So we hope that if you're tuning into this meeting, if you haven't had the time yet to go back and take a look at past meetings, the summaries and the posts and links, they're also all available at the page that you're watching this on. So I'm just getting confused that people are here, but they're not here. So
Shall we start over again so that you're.
I have to act as if it is the live and that there's.
No, you don't have to act as if it's live at all.
Okay. What about telling people to tweet and the tweet stream?
No,
I'm not doing that. Okay.
No, just hi. Those of you who are watching, start from start over, but it is.
But it's not as if I'm pretending there's the tweet.
Introduce yourself. You're bad about not introducing yourself.
Self in place and whatever.
I'm Rebecca Hurd, Creating the Future. Welcome everybody. But we're not live, and we don't have to pretend to be.
Okay, so I thought I was pretending that it was happening live. And... Okay. Okay. Hello, welcome everyone. I am Rebecca Hurd, beaming in from Creating the Future and from the beautiful mountains of McCall, Idaho today. And we are here today to continue our ongoing conversations around what a monthly contributor campaign makes possible in the form of an on-ramp to deep engagement and deep relationships with people all over the world. So we welcome you here. If you're watching and this is your first diving into this conversation, we do want to encourage you to check out the other links, the summaries, the posts, the recordings, whichever way you'd like to catch up to all the good work we've had before us, as well as what's to come next. So first, as always, at Creating the Future, it's about the people and not the thing. It's not about diving into the meeting and the conversation we're about to have, but it's an introducing and honoring everyone who's here, how we're feeling today, and sharing our awesomes. Because it's important to always start to recognize all that is awesome in our lives, and that is in awe of things. So not saying necessarily big, huge things, but things that really have us stop and look up and think about something. And whatever that makes possible, there is no end. So I'd like to welcome everyone else who's here and start with Dimitri.
Hi, I'm Dimitri Petropoulos. I'm with Creating the Future. Beaming in, as we say, from sunny Tucson, Arizona. It's finally cooling down, which is wonderful. So we've got that nice 40-degree spread between a 75, 80-degree day and a 45-degree night, which is kind of cool. So I'm happy to be here.
And what's awesome with you, Mr. Petropoulos?
Awesome with me is had dinner with friends last night and found out that people I've known for 35 years that we ended up having gone to the same high school together and actually shared some teachers that we had the same identical feeling towards. So it was pretty awesome to realize how small the world is. So that was very cool and really enjoyed that.
How about you, Hildy?
I am Hildy Gottlieb with Creating the Future, and I am not only beaming in from Tucson, Arizona, but beaming in from.
Darn, you gave away our secrets.
Gave away the secret. My awesomes, I've got a couple of awesomes. It was wonderful to be with friends last night. Very, very personal awesome. I have been working aggressively and lost 10 pounds so far. That's awesome. Only 20 to go, but the work is paying off, so that's always awesome. And feeling good and feeling healthy, and that feels neat. That's not about the losing of the weight, but about the gaining of the health. And had a delightful conversation this morning at the coffee shop where I start my morning every day. There's just this delightful young guy. He's 22. He's old. And I asked him what's going on with him, and he said that he was really nervous because he was heading to Georgia next week to go home for Thanksgiving and be with his family, who are very conservative Republicans. And he was afraid going into the South and afraid going home, just in terms of the conversations that he's going to have. And I know him because I see him every day. He is a very, very devoted yoga practitioner and studying to be a yoga teacher. And it was really wonderful to have a conversation with him to say everything that you embody in your yoga practice. You're so lucky to have your yoga practice, that everything that you embody in terms of finding the heart in people, that's going to benefit you in your conversations. And his smile and his saying, I find that every time I have the conversation and I come to the conversation from a place of curiosity, it changes everything in the conversation.
Wow.
And I just, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much what we're all about. And just tapping into that from so many different wisdom traditions. It was just a really delightful way to start the day at 6 o'clock before I had any caffeine. So that's my awesome stuff. And how about you, Rebecca? What's awesome with you?
Let's see, two awesomes. One, I think along the lines, at Creating the Future, we are in the middle of, we're teaching two classes right now. Our catalytic listening class, which will be coming out of beta with this cohort ending, and our first cohort of our catalytic decision-making class. But what I think about is what makes possible is the community and conversations we are all part of, because this is not teachers lecturing, this is facilitating humans, yes, providing content and context, but holding the space for each person in their personal practice. So I think about all of the new thoughts and reflections that are informing how I'm spending my headspace as a result of these people in our classes each week. And that alone is a humongous gift to one another, to be in conversation. My other awesome, because I'll have to get up from my chair in a second, is that we are finding out what is going on with my dog and her health. And she has lots of allergies we've uncovered, but part of her daily bringing out her best is plenty of sunshine and digging outside. So I have to step out to get her, and I will be right back.
We will be here. We'll sing a song while you're gone.
That's right.
We'll do the Jeopardy theme.
That's perfect. I was thinking elevator music, but the Jeopardy theme is even better than that. So we'll have that in the background. So hello, Hildy. How are you?
Hi, Demetra. What's going on with you?
I am like in a really cool meeting that's going on.
Are you?
Yes, I am. Hello. So yes, that's very neat, and this topic is really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I'm excited to see where it evolves to. It has such a there's a lot of normal expectation around it, and it's great to think about it from the perspective of what if all of that's not true? What if there are different ways of doing this, and what, in the context of Creating the Future, brings out the best in folks, in with this. So I'm really jazzed to talk about this.
Yeah, the thing that excites me about this conversation is when we start looking at it, and I've been thinking about this a lot as well, when we start looking at a monthly contributor campaign through the lens of it being an on-ramp to deeper engagement, it takes away the scarcity feeling. It takes away the, oh, they only gave $5 a month, to, oh, wow, they gave $5 a month. That means that's the on-ramp to having a conversation with somebody who we didn't even know existed before. That if every donation is an on-ramp, I had one just this week to a conversation with somebody I never knew existed, who said that she has been absorbing our stuff for 3 years and feeling a part of our stuff for 3 years. And we did not know she was anywhere on the planet. And that one small donation as an introduction, it just takes away the scarcity of, oh, it's a tiny donation, that's not going to matter. And all the conversations we hear about, should we, it takes so much time to thank people well. Should there be a cutoff point at which we just send them a routine letter? And it's like, you know, my line for years has been, why don't you just send them a letter that says you're wasting our time? Why don't you stop giving us such little?
Well, I can see that the cutoff point as you keep getting lower and lower and lower is finally just an emoji thumbs up. You know?
Or an emoji, you're wasting our time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a waste of time for me to have to send you this letter. So please stop giving us it all, which you know, that whole scarcity. So this is a very abundance filled, and it's not even enoughness. It's an abundance filled. When you're talking about love and compassion and wisdom and engagement and relationship, there's just this abundance, if there's that word, that effusiveness that it feels big, it feels possible, it feels warm and fuzzy, and a monthly giving campaign doesn't ever feel warm and fuzzy unless it's warm and fuzzy as a means to the end of getting that $10 a month. And it's just such a different perspective, and it just feels good.
And I think even how so many people can look at the way they've been operating in community benefit organizations already and say, you know what, we have a ripe crop of people who've already told us our work is important and has meaning, and we haven't even reached out. And if we reach out, it's always been in the frame of, okay, who can come to a calling party or write a thank you note, or what's our strategy for the next thing that we're going to nurture that person for, all around more money. And it's so often, even when we give to community benefit organizations, it's like, hey, I'm right here and you could really engage me because I could give way more than that $20 I gave you if you actually got to know one another and the ways I could contribute to making your mission possible. So it's even saying, look what we already have wherever you are in your organization that's ready to be given some love and attention. And to experiment with that, what are you willing to try something with what you already have, of calling people and saying, hey, who are you? I want to get to know you.
Right.
Yeah. It's and doing that. I'm thinking regardless of, but I'm almost thinking of flipping it. We sort of kind of do that in the world of philanthropy. We sort of kind of do that if somebody gives us what we consider a major gift. Somebody gives us $10,000 or $100,000, or if you're small, $500. You pick up the phone and you say, could we go to lunch? I'd really like to get to know you better. And we don't do that with anybody else. We've got a cutoff of where we think somebody's relationship is worthy. And flipping that and just, there's something that feels very colorful and right here and very human.
What I have been trying to visualize it as is if someone take money out of the equation. If someone comes up and says, I'm interested in what you're doing, I really am interested in what you're doing, I'd like to express that interest to you. And you don't know at that point the level of their interest. You don't know at that point whether they're going to buy a new building, or they're going to take your kids to daycare for you, or, run down the list. You don't know. But the fact that they've expressed that interest that's the point. And so once we put the gauge of money on it, then all of a sudden it's no longer the point. It is the quantity of the money that, or not, it shouldn't be, but it frequently is the quantity of the money that what you're focused on, and not on that initial reason why they wanted to contribute, why they wanted to be part of this, what they want and contribute in whatever way they're contributing. So in my mind, it's how do you separate those so that you're focusing on that intent and not so much on the quantity.
And that makes me also think of how my own journey right here with Creating the Future was, this mission is my mission, and that willingness to come have an exploration together of, we don't know what it looks like yet, and we won't know what it's going to look like unless we spend time together exploring, talking about things that bring me joy, whatever that turns out. But that conversation a couple of years ago led to my role with Creating the Future now. This is how I spend all of my time. So you think about that self-engagement and self-discovery, because oftentimes also we'll hear, well, here are the ways you can get engaged. And it's slotted often in things labeled volunteer roles versus what could be possible if, sure, there's things that could be done, but there's also a host of exploration and discovery, which takes human to human connection and a willingness to say, you might have something that we never even thought about.
Yeah, you guys have my brain just popping. So let's get into questions, because otherwise we're just going to go all over the place because my brain just exploded.
Well, given that Creating the Future itself is a grand experiment, everything we are pushing forward is in itself part of that grand experiment. So the Creating a Monthly Contributors campaign, that's all about what the campaign itself will make possible for current and future contributors. That is the right place for where we talked about it, using causality to what is the potential outcome? What is that thing we're reaching for? Because it's not the campaign itself. Because if it's the campaign itself, the conversation will be about more donors, more money. And if we get to spend time with them, it's going to be to ask that same donor for more money. And that will be saying that that is the ends. The campaign is simply one precondition toward deep engagement, a sense of belonging, a sense of reciprocity and gratitude, a sense of enoughness at the individual level. And like you were talking about, Hildy, how we talk about those quiet thinkers, people who may be coming to our website, looking at posts, watching videos. That is enough. If you are taking that into your life and you are helping to create a better world, how can that not be enough? And we're not looking to move you on some continuum to something else. You choose, and we may never even know you're there, but you are welcome. And that's when it started to pop at the last conversation, where the conditions started to get into some actions we could take so that that quiet thinker would know you are enough. We also talked about those who are actively gobbling up everything imaginable. You too are enough, and we are not asking more. It sounds like you're interested. We may suggest, would you like to be invited? We want to welcome you to these other things we're working on. So the deeper people go, the more they can see places to play and experiment and share in here and out in the world that we'll never even know about. But if that's aiming to the better world, awesome. So that's where we spent our time last, is then talking about those conditions, the sense of belonging and enoughness. So then even coming in causality, what would it take to create that, is where we now turn our time today. What are the internal conditions we can create so that all of those sense of belonging and reciprocity, enoughness will flourish within the monthly contributor campaign? This is everything we're talking about is the feeling we want all humans to have every place in this world. But the context of this conversation is through the lens of what this monthly contributor campaign, what the doing will actually look like.
And I just so love that, because you can substitute for monthly contributor campaign anything that any community organization or any business does on a day-to-day basis. So if the goal is, what would it take for a monthly contributor campaign to create that sense of enoughness and belonging and welcome and real relationship? Substitute, what would it take for selling a car? What would it take for selling machine parts that go into the car to create a sense of belonging and together, and that just changes every conversation. That it's not about the sale. It's not about it's recognizing that money is always a means, and at the ends, okay, so what are the real ends that we want? And so there's something really, really powerful in just those questions, Rebecca, and I find that it's powerful outside the realm of the specifics of what we're talking about. That at any point somebody's going to be able to substitute, okay, whatever Creating the Future came up with that made sense in a monthly contributor campaign also makes sense in my car dealership. And that to me is just like really exciting.
You said something, Rebecca, earlier about we're dealing with a donor and moving them to the next point. And the process in not-for-profit fundraising and development called moves management, where they move you from one point to another. And what it keyed on me was the word management, that you are managing this relationship and you are a manager of this relationship. There is a number of things that I've been reading in the recent past around organizations that remove management and allow the organizations to organically operate, around the same goal, whatever it is. And Hilda, you keyed on this with, what if you're making machine parts or whatever? And there's some factories that basically removed the management and let them operate as their own teams. And all of a sudden, all these great new ideas popped into place. And they were more productive than they had been when they had been tightly managed. So I'm thinking about the feedback that happens when you're not trying to manage a supporter, a donor, someone, where they come into this realm as a partner, in essence, and now you're benefiting from from things that you don't even know that they have. And what they have may be good ideas, or they have maybe perspectives that we don't have. So it's really making me think about this from that lens of what else is there that we're not able to tap into, and that's not that, even that, I don't like that phrase, that we're not able to enjoy because we're looking at it as we're managing these people and managing the relationship of what they are. So.
Yeah. Substitute children and spouses. I'm managing my marriage. Mm-hmm. That sounds joyful.
So, speaking specifically of the conditions, what would the monthly contributor campaign look like to feel deep engagement? For deep engagement to flourish, what would the campaign itself need to have, need to?
The thing that popped for me earlier when we were talking, Rebecca's frozen.
Hopefully that will.
Let's unfreeze Rebecca. You're back. We got as far as what would a monthly contributor campaign need to have, need to
be for deep engagement to flourish. What would the campaign itself need to look like? If that's what we're aiming for, is this deep engagement with humans.
The thought that popped for me earlier, where I said we need to get into this conversation because my brain just went. The reason people give for not engaging at this level is twofold. One, they're seeing through the lens of scarcity, so it's a waste of time. And two, they don't have the time. So even if they do want to engage deeply, they don't have the time, which is they don't have the people. They aren't engaging the people to engage other people. That if you're engaging people, it should all be around money, and we'll engage you to please ask people for money. But so I think what a monthly contributor campaign would need to have is systems for that deep engagement and circles, ripples of humans who, because it takes time to engage in those relationships. And so those are systems that are absent in every, doesn't matter, government, for-profit, non-profit, business, just I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time is like the mantra of the world. And the other thing that aha for me is we're at a significant shift economically on this planet, and I mean significant, like historical economic. So we went from Stone Age to all of the ages in between We went from industrial age to the age of information. And so much of the shift of what we're seeing right now is, I can't remember who it was that said that we're moving from resource to information. So that's why the jobs are disappearing. And we can blame it on, pink or blue. But when we start fighting over resources, many things will change in the world. And we're feeling that shift.
Mm-hmm.
We're also feeling the shift of people talking about work that doesn't exist anymore. And so we want to cling on to jobs that physically aren't needed anymore, but we're keeping those jobs because people need to have jobs. And if the nature of work is changing and the nature of job is changing, and we need all these people to engage, whether it is in the community benefit world, whether it is in the government world, whether it is in the business world, we need people who can engage. It's not just training people in technology and computers. It's training people for a completely different way of being. And so what I'm seeing, what became so clear to me when you guys were talking before, is that we have a world that is shifting away from work that is no longer needed and clinging desperately to that work, saying, but I'm a mechanic and I need to be able to work on shit. And there are no other jobs, to this other place where we're saying we could use 1 million people and all they need to be is be human with each other. Mm-hmm. And so it just sort of, that what is needed, what a campaign would need to have is the people who are skilled in just building relationships, being human with each other. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry for babbling so much, but it's just like
well, I think it also speaks to a value shift, a huge value shift around what's important and where does identity come from? Because a lot of I think the lost jobs is also loss of identity. This is who I was. I was the person who did this, or I am the person who did this, and that this is now being done by a machine, or that this is being done. The idea that this is being exported is short-lived, because very soon all of that work can be done in an automated fashion. If cars can drive themselves, then hamburgers can be cooked by a machine perfectly based on what you ask it for. You don't need to press buttons or do whatever. You can come in and ask it just like you can text on your phone or whatever. So I think it's really important to think about this from that perspective of what do we value in life as human beings and for each other? And is it valuable that people have resources to live a life of curiosity and exploration and helping others and engagement and whatnot, versus what has been? Because you're absolutely right, it's not going to come back. It's like us, going into wooden carts. And, from now on, everybody has to have a donkey in a wooden cart because that's the way it was.
It makes that the sense of the lost jobs is just even, I think of even larger, all of the major shifts that can happen in an individual's life. Like they can transition from a nurturing kindergarten to a first grade class where no one knows my name, to when I get out of our current prison system, to when I move to be retired, and this sense of who am I and where am I, or if I suddenly have to move cross country, and whether the environment I was in was nurturing and about relationships or not, it's a huge adjustment for how do I want to be together with other people and not to feel lost, whatever the transition is of my job no longer exists, or to see I am not my job, but who am me and all the gifts I have to be in community with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the summary that you had done of our prior meeting of what would people need to feel and believe in order to feel that deep engagement. And so much of this assistance, what would a campaign need to have for people to feel welcomed and invited? we need systems for welcoming and inviting people for who they are, not just for what they gave. Thank you for your gift. Your gift will be put to good use. You're a rock star for giving to us. And that's what we normally get. And here's how it's tax deductible. And so systems for welcoming and inviting people in a way that says, thank you so much for your interest and enthusiasm for our work. We'd like to know more about you. Which then brings to mind for me, in what would it take, people would need to feel and trust that the request to get to know somebody is not just so that you can ask them for more money.
Yeah.
Because that's the system we currently have, and there's so much skepticism.
Yeah.
So
that gets to then what you were sharing about at last meeting when actions started to pop. And part of that knowing what our intention is behind wanting to get to know you is, you mentioned like a manifesto, or, on our website, because our website is the convening space for the world, then explicitly say all of these things. Everything we talk about here is shared there. So when we ask you to get to know you, here are our beliefs, here's our values, and here's what those look like in action. That's why you see this at our website. That's why you will hear from a human for this very reason, but also to acknowledge, here's all the systems we've been operating in. So maybe you are feeling a little skeptical, but that's not what this place is about. This is about creating healthy and supportive systems for humans to shine.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for reminding me of what I said, because I never remember what I say.
That's when we ended the last meeting, we were at the place that the actions were popping because the conditions turned to actions.
Yeah, it's very interesting thinking about when someone calls, they're almost always calling because they want something. Generally, your friends don't, but even your friends can be calling because they want something. It may not be money, but it is less frequent they call to just say, Rebecca, I just called to say hello. I just want to know how you're doing. I was thinking about you and whatever. And very frequently the pollster is thinking about me, but not in the same way. So that I think that's so important to know, to create a system whereby people are anxious, happy to get the call, looking forward to the connection.
Systems where the expectation on all sides is that there'll be connection.
Because I think of, if in this monthly contributor campaign, if someone gives us a monetary donation, I think all the way back to logistically, they had to go to the website and there was a page. And it's even thinking, what does that page itself say, where you complete something which we say, this is the start of our relationship. We may or may not know you right now. And in either case, it is open to that self-exploration, but what you can expect from us. Kind of like, instead of that, it's like the opposite of, here's your membership benefits. If you give us this much money, you get the tote bag and the blah, blah, blah. And if you give this money, you get the behind the scenes access to the so-and-so. Instead, it's like, here's what our relationship's all about and what you will expect. The phone will ring. And then it's creating the system so that actually we have many champions of creating the future. So the phone will ring for each person.
Yeah, wow.
So what do I do with all the tote bags then?
Hand them out at the grocery store to all
There
the
you go.
plastic. So,
Paper, plastic, or creating the future tote bag. Yeah, and there's it really is, and So there's the part of the campaign would need to have before, during, and after a donation.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about sort of that during part. They get to the website, they're going to click on something. What does a campaign need to have before they get there? What does the campaign need to be in order for somebody to not think it's about money and until they get to the website and then go, oh, that's interesting.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's like my brain's doing too many things. If throughout the whole campaign, from before somebody clicks and says, yeah, I would love to donate, through them donating, through to the after they donate, systems need to be in place throughout so that that expectation isn't a surprise, a pleasant surprise when they get the call of gratitude, or a pleasant surprise when they hit the donate. But what could the campaign look like at that before place during the quote ask, or the building up of the relationship before ask, and what are we asking for? And so there's that whole, there's, you know, to me there's like 3 stages of the entree into that relationship. And then there's ongoing relationship management.
I think there'll be, you know, there's the piece of human, like the person who's just perhaps been poking, or there's the people who will just kind of trip upon this because they click on everything, and we know they're out there, anything from creating the future. But even in the before piece, it gets to human conversation. So that gets to the I think of the champions, creating the future champions, the people who already feel so deeply committed to this mission, who we already know you exist, and there's growing numbers of them, and it's happening quicker that people, I think, are turning into champions. I'm thinking of beautiful Sue Kindred, who wasn't able to be at this conversation, but she'll be watching the recording, because she is a champion of creating the future. She's someone who has come in the cycle of time over just the last months or something, but she has been lit on fire and is already in that space of championing it because she feels it in her heart. So I think about, I guess maybe if we need to put this in the parking lot, but what do the champions need to have? You know, what is it those people who feel I'm sharing this with other people, including feeling very comfortable in sharing, would you consider being a monthly contributor? You know, like what do they need to have to be supported in those conversations?
I don't know that that's a parking lot. I think that that's very real in terms of what does the campaign need to have and be. It needs to have champions, because those are humans who are reaching out to create relationships with other people around what has them lit on fire about the work that we're doing. And what do the champions need to have in order to feel comfortable doing that, I think is a real part of what any campaign needs to be. So what do those champions need to have?
I think relationships with other humans at creating the future, and you know, creating the future is more than a roster of people who currently work at creating the future. It's
Right.
your connections with other humans, that this work is important together, their own personal experiences of how this has changed something in my life, what I've brought into my life and what that made possible, and how I brought it into my life was, you know, whichever the way of what did my self-engagement look like? What was my experience? How did I get involved?
Yeah, that story, their story. So not just their experience, but turning their experience into their story.
That makes me think of, the language, we like just the language that they need to be able to share explicitly.
There's also, I'm looking back at your summary again. For people to feel deeper engagement, what would they need to know? They need to know the context, the whole picture, understand what Creating the Future is aiming to accomplish, where all the opportunities are. So I think that that's a piece of it as well, is what is Creating the Future?
I think that there's and I'm not sure how to state this, but not a what's in it for them, but what really is this?
Right.
Why is this important? Because it's really not about creating the future. It's about what it represents and how they're connected to what it's representing and how they can, I think about the phrase you've used, and I love the alliteration, the more please phrase, that it is really more please for everyone. So if you're contributing, if you want to contribute to the organization, you want more for everyone, and that as opposed to just yourself. So I'm not sure how to translate that, but to me that it is really important that be clear, that what we are is clear, what we are for them is clear, and what we are for others is clear, so that they want to engage for that.
So I'm looking at the list I scribbled down in answer to what champions need to have. They need to have a relationship with people that are engaged with Creating the Future. They need to have personal experience with how being part of Creating the Future has affected them, and the ability to turn that into a story, their story. They would need to have language and need to have a sense of why, not just what is Creating the Future, but why it is important to them and to the world. And when I asked myself, okay, so we asked, what would a campaign need to have? It would need to have champions, turning people into champions. What do the champions need to have? Relationships, experience, story, the why. What would it take to have those relationships, those personal experiences, the ability to turn it into a story, the why? I keep coming back down to systems.
I think the systems are then the vehicle to which you feel that ongoing space to convene and share, belonging, contributing, reciprocity. Like it's systems will be continuing for you to share what you want to share with whoever else is coming into this community. Because then from there, the more time you're spending in there, then the more comfortable you are rippling out further and further.
Yeah.
And I guess the systems is consistency.
Yeah.
And it's consistency and transcendence. How does the next team or the other team or whomever continue this, to take what is a very rich conversation that's been going on here and take the distillation of that and apply it 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, or 6 months from now, or tomorrow, for that matter. So I agree that systems, in whatever that means for this, is important.
And part of me is coming back to something that Rebecca, we've been talking about for 2 years now, which is stories, which is capturing, is helping people to see their experience through the lens of story. The shift that I've had personally because of what being part of Creating the Future has meant to me, and then systems for easily turning that into a story that can be shared, and the importance of the sharing of the story, and we've talked so much about the importance of not just having stories but sharing stories. And so there's something there in terms of systems for, and it could just as easily be, you know, getting down to the how. It could just as easily be a form, you know, with 3 questions on it. And don't ask me right now what those questions are because my brain's mush. But you know, it could be, here's 3 questions that we can ask that turn your experience into the story. There's systems for turning their experience into story. There's also, though, systems for and then what? So what happens with that story?
Mm-hmm.
So if, for example, it gets posted at our website, okay, and then what?
Mm-hmm.
So is it systems for them to share that with others? Is it systems for them to invite others, engage others? So I just keep going the and then what, and then what, and then what, because so often we wind up in if we build it, they will come mode. But I think the being intentional of and then what, and then what, and then what is you know, what will it take to create the conditions for people to be deeply engaged by that champion?
Mm-hmm.
I was just imagining, like in the then what, that the story is shared, and then the then what is that can be a catalyst to convene people in conversations around something that pops from that story. So then that's the continuing to, I see myself, I am a part of Creating the Future. I have ways because there's Creating the Future has built sharing systems. So these are systems to share, to bring people together. So whatever tools needed on the back end, you know, for Sarah posted her story, but then she's also inviting those she knows, so tagging and inviting people to a conversation about X, and also inviting anyone in the world who this is meaningful to you. We will be having a conversation and we will record and share that as well. But giving the opportunity to have, I guess, systems in place for people to bring people together around this mission in conversation, deeper relationship.
So what I was scribbling is we need for champions to have what they need to be champions, to engage and invite and welcome other people. They need systems for turning their experience into story, and then they need systems for turning the story into conversation, whether that is one-on-one or convening group conversation around something that's of interest to them. And again, this so depends on who the individual person is.
Right.
You know, I may be really, really comfortable quietly writing my story and giving you permission to share it on your website.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not comfortable engaging somebody in a conversation about it.
Right.
I may not even be comfortable sharing it on my Facebook page just because of who I am. Or maybe that's the extent to which I'm comfortable is sharing it on my Facebook page. And that's awesome.
And
And
that comes back to what we'll explicitly say, the narrative around all these systems, the explicit nature of what this is, that we're not moving you along because then you'll do this and you'll do this and you'll do this, but also saying that, but instead of, this is what this is you charting the destiny you want, what feels comfortable to you. And if you decide a year from now you want to take that story and do something with it, guess what? These systems will be here for you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, in that context, that some people live a life, a very large life. And so their world of contacts and friends and people is large. And some people live a very close, and better words for this, but
quiet.
Live a very quiet life. And I think this has to be appealing to both. It's what you're saying, Hildy, in terms of what they're comfortable with, and also what they're familiar with. So, there's people who would love to, get on the bandwagon and share this with the world, and there's people who would say, this is really good for the way I'm thinking, and I'm going to apply that one thing tomorrow when I do something else.
So I'm thinking about the fact that introverts are always seeking ways that they can step in and make a difference within their comfort zone. They're not people who want to hide in the house. They're people who want to make a difference, but they want to make a difference in a way that feels comfortable with their way of being. And systems need to be in place for that, to honor that, where folks who don't naturally step into, and I don't even mean the limelight, I mean folks who don't naturally step into having a conversation with strangers. That's not the only choice. You don't have to go knock on your neighbor's door because that's not the only choice. That there are choices co-created by people who, there's asking in terms of what would it take to create these systems. It is co-creating them with the people that we would want to, that want to use them. That it's not our coming up with systems, because those systems usually have should in them. When other people come up with systems for other people, they usually have should in them. Well, they should just do this. Well, what if they don't want to? Well, they need to. Okay. You go do it. And I'm seeing something very similar in terms of the gratitude piece. What would systems for gratitude look like beyond picking up the phone and saying, thank you for your donation? I think, I know that you were intending, Rebecca, and I'm looking forward to it, having an entire conversation about, a gratitude campaign, period. And what a gratitude campaign could make possible, and then that gratitude campaign being applied to anybody to whom we're grateful.
Yeah, I think it's just that gratitude is our way of being, which we already all are, but the reality is we don't have systems in place. So, grab that person, but it's what we already are being, but to actually be explicit in creating a plan, inviting others to co-create that with us all around. What would that look like if there's always steady gratitude in every day of any interaction.
Gratitude takes time. It takes time to say thank you and to actually be human and connect. And it does. I'll just be real.
And that, I think the system of gratitude, knowing that it's human based, is it takes people. It takes, you know, and that's where also what people would need to know and have and understand as champions of creating the future. That's joyful stuff. You know, that's the gratitude is part of the on-ramp, is part of sharing our stories.
And I think that there really is a big piece in all of this of, because what tends to happen, and you see this happen traditionally in board members, but you also see this in the business world with people who are in sales tend to have the whole story so they can talk to the customer, but people who are behind the scenes don't feel that they know enough. And you see it with board members, you see it with, well, I don't really know enough to talk to people about creating the future. I don't really know enough working at the XYZ company to talk to people about our product. I mean, I use the product, but I don't know that. And so I think there's that sense of confidence to, there's a desire to not mess up. There's a desire to do proud to something that you care about, which leads to the desire of, again, feeling like I'm not enough. So what if that's not true? What if every champion is enough simply by means of their wanting to be champion? Because they have their own story of why. And that they don't necessarily need to know, okay, so my brain just leaked. They don't necessarily need to know what all creating the future is in order to be a champion. They need to know why creating the future is important to them.
Yeah.
And then need to be able to hand that next question to some place, somebody, something. So, I've been doing this thing. It's really incredible. I started this practice that I've been thinking about, that I wake up every morning and I ask this question, and it's just been changing everything. And we're talking about it at lunch. And so tell me about this group. It's really hard for me to say. I mean, they're all about bringing out the best in people, and I'm not entirely sure all the stuff that they do, but here's their website, but here's their whatever. There's the releasing people from that feeling that they're not enough to be a champion. That if this has meaning to you, then you are more than enough to be a champion.
Well, it's also shifting from those usual assumptions around being an ambassador for an organization. It's for the organization. So then you feel like you've got to get the brain dump on the latest stats of clients served and da-da-da-da-da. And the only reason I need to know all that is I have to seem legit because I'm going to ask you for money. So it's changing all of that, because if you are a champion, the very nature of being a champion is that you have made a personal commitment and this is impacting you personally. So what can be more powerful than having your own story around what is different for me as a result of being a part of wherever I'm choosing to be a part of. And that then becomes the story, is I can choose where I want to step in and how I step in at creating the future. So how it looks for me will look different for every single person. And isn't that incredible?
Yes, that being a trained salesperson, having all of the data, all of the stats, all of the arguments, so you can counter the arguments. Mm-hmm. And if you're not selling anything,
yeah.
And what is helpful if somebody wants to know more is having a resource where they can find more. And Dimitri, you are a gift from the gods, because our website is truly on its way to being, so many people are saying now, I had no idea there was so much going on, and that Creating the Future was so much. And our website's only maybe 60%.
I know. I was going to say, just wait for phase 2. If you love phase 1, you're going to really love phase 2.
We're barely dipped in here as to what it's showing of what's actually going on at Creating the Future. And so I think that the invitation to be a champion and to be able to say all you need to be able to do is share your story in whatever way you feel comfortable sharing your story of why this is powerful for you. And that the ultimate goal of that is to build a relationship with someone who can also begin walking the path of bringing out the best in other people and themselves. And that so relating that back to a monthly contributor campaign, what would a campaign need to have in order for champions to feel, because so if we're relating it to a monthly contributor campaign, there's a million different ways that you can be involved. And where I'm trying to make the link in my own head is very, very simple to think about the path of what does it take to engage people. Because we have such rigid ideas, and I've got them in my head for really, really many decades, of what a monthly contributor campaign looks like. It's maybe busting open that campaign part, and maybe it is not campaign, maybe it is, as you've been saying, Rebecca, a way of being. So if one of the ways, one of the many ways one can contribute is to contribute monthly. One of the ways one can be engaged and connected and stay connected so then it busts open the question, not what if a donation is an on-ramp to engagement, but what if everything is an on-ramp to engagement? What if quote volunteering is an on-ramp to engagement? What if being a member of a Facebook community, being in a class, being part of a podcast, being part of, what if everything is an on-ramp to engagement? And the systems would be the same regardless, and we wouldn't need to have a quote campaign. We would be asking people to connect in whatever ways make sense to them. And so if one of us felt excited because, so let's say Joni is a monthly contributor, and Joni just took a class with 10 other people, and Joni wants to ask them to also be monthly contributors, because that's a lens where Joni feels really comfortable, and she's so excited that she just became a monthly contributor and wants to engage others. That Joni has the same packet of goodies, the same systems that that Johnny has, who just did amazing volunteer help with the website, and wants to get his IT club in whatever to be doing stuff, and it's the exact same packet of goodies, the same systems, and that if we're engaging, then if this is our way of being, then this is our way of being, and there's a million different ways where you can plug in, but it's always the same.
I like that, because otherwise we're parsing out money as a separate thing, and we'll be explaining all the time. It's not really a campaign like you think. We know the assumptions that will come, And we also, because we've already been experiencing it and asking people to be a part of this conversation, because the assumptions could even be, oh, you're going to ask me for money in the conversation. And campaign, just, you know, it's using legacy language that just has crappy feelings around it. So I love that you said change the language. And
you know, I'm thinking, Hildy, about, you know, recently there was someone who saw the title of an email and came to conclusions of what the email was because it included legacy language in the title, and never even opened the email to see that it had nothing to do with that. But because it included the legacy language, they jumped to a conclusion and based their next 4 decisions on that conclusion. And it was wrong. You know, I mean, there was nothing wrong with their conclusion, but the conclusion was not based on what was really happening. That was based on their assumptions. And so I agree, Rebecca, that I think that the legacy language and thinking about it and addressing it's going to be really important in order to convey what this really is. Because when you use words like campaign and giving and run down the list of all of the legacy stuff, I would assume that. I mean, if I saw that without, I mean, I may give it more time and see, well, what are you really saying here? But I could see if all I had was that, you know, tweet that said that, you know, 140 characters, that's what I would probably assume.
And it's also not trying to be dodgy about it. You know, we're not finding different language, but also the reality is still there that a resource in order to scale up is money, you know. So I think also that's a reality, like all kinds, we know from collective enoughness that all kinds of gifts can be shared, but we are still inviting people to give money as one of those resources. So it's not kind of lost in the shuffle of, you know, contributions.
Right.
What's fun about thinking about this is that it is empowering, and if Kim Louth is watching, I'm sorry I used the empower word, but it is empowering people to champion what is meaningful to them in ways that are meaningful to them. So it's not saying creating the future is having a monthly contributions campaign. It is, Joni, am asking a group of people in my class about something that I found meaningful to me and asking them, here's a list of ways that you can contribute and be a part of and engage others in. And I personally, Joni, think that I want to support this in what I'm doing. So I'm giving. And I'm asking you to give. But it's not because we sent Joni out on a mission. We being the organization, and especially as we start scaling and restructuring to be more distributed, having campaigns versus a way of being doesn't feel like it makes sense in a distributed manner.
Yeah, a way of being is a steady state. A campaign has stop start.
Yeah, yeah. And if there is an invitation, whether it's at the website, whether it is whatever, and if everything is fractal, so everywhere somebody is, the same invitation exists. So if we have a Facebook community, if we have et cetera, if there's always that same invitation to here's the million doors you can walk through at Creating the Future. And here's what will happen when you walk through those doors. Because we have the systems in place. So the person walking into the front door at Creating the Future, getting excited because either somebody told them, they read an article, they did something, and going, oh my gosh, I want to be part of this. I don't even know where to start. At the very, 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 very first level, being able to answer that question. How do I start? Where do I go? What do I, the simplicity of the webpage could be anything. Here's the million ways that you can begin to walk this journey, to be part of this experiment. What do you think?
Oh, I'm just chuckling because, I'm thinking about all of the websites. It says 9 ways you can start this journey. 7 amazing ways that this journey begins.
And you won't believe what happened next.
So we get people to click on these things because of link bait. I think that's probably true.
No matter where you show up or when you show up, we've talked about this before in so many other conversations. What will always be present and how will that person feel? And that gets back to the same themes of the welcome and invited, gratitude, belonging, enoughness. That will then determine the words we put there, the ways to connect, the human element.
And it comes back to, so before I was saying, if we're doing a campaign, there's the before, the during, the after. What can people expect at all of those places? If you don't have a campaign, you still want to answer that question. Here's the million ways to engage, and here's what you can expect when you do. And then having the systems that meet those expectations.
I love, that's making me think, because so often I think about so many kind of standard processes or journeys you go on in your life, and there's never the roadmap. Like, it would be immensely helpful anytime people are going to purchase a house to understand the flow of events. Here's what you can expect. Here's where the clock starts. A document. Because things just willy-nilly get parsed out. Oh, we need this now. Oh, the clock has started. And a real estate agent could create, because I have found it'd be very helpful to say, here's what to expect in your experience. Here's where we're locked in. No turning back or you'll lose some money. Kind of like, here's all these decision points. But so often we don't have any sense of what to expect next. Even if you're in a conversation with someone on the phone, like, well, I often ask, well, what's next? Will I get an email? Will you call me back? How will I know that this is, you heard me, or you put it in the system? So it's actually what good would feel like, that you knew, that you kind of always knew where I am.
I love this. It's a flow chart. It's to say, it's a flow chart. But where am I in the flow chart? What are the options? What are the things that are going to happen? I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, I could see that also having, what popped to mind was the East Entrance mall map. That shows all of the stores and breaks them down by categories. So, the restaurants are here, this is that. I can find shoes over there, and I'm right here. But I could also see it, and I've seen some that are even more interactive than that. I click on shoes, and it's the 7 shoe stores, and they talk about them, and this sells this and this sells that. So it isn't just shoes. It's so the map gives you the ability to drill down. The you are here flow chart lets you drill down further and say, and I'm using your example on this, Rebecca. I've reached this buying a house, and this is my, don't turn back. You can't turn back without losing some money. Well, what does that mean? How much money would I lose? So I can, at that point, drill down and say, well, I don't care. If I buy this house, I'll be much worse off, so it's worth my losing $500 furnace money, or whatever. Not worth it, but I'm willing to make that decision. So I could see this having that not only granular but depth to it as well, so that people can go as deep as they want to, or they could just scan the cursory flowchart.
I think how it's also quite an effective approach that in the sense of because I think people want to kind of get oriented and use self to kind of figure things out, not always be like, help me, I'm lost. Or, if you can actually give some grounding to someone. And then also, hey, if you want to connect with a human, there continues to be the options as you orient yourself, but you're also kind of free to find a lay of the land and get a sense of stuff because someone's given you some kind of orientation to what we are, what's going on in here, and welcome.
So what would it take then to have those systems that A, show the many ways that one could engage, B, determine what they can expect once they engage in one of those ways, and meets those expectations. So the first thing is, what would it take to show the many ways that one could engage? I think that's probably figure out the many ways that one could engage. Figure it out, post it. Seems like an easy one, but I think that what would it take is figuring it out. And that would be a fabulous conversation to have.
That gets to how I think in one of the conversations you had recently, Hildy, where the woman you were talking with then said, I had no idea all that's going on at Creating the Future, is what's possible when we actually serve it all up in one place. Like, here's all the different ways you can engage. It's impressive when someone clicks along because they're, it's knocking people's socks off to take a look at all that, but to actually curate it a bit in all many ways you can engage.
And I'm going to key off the word curate here for a second, Rebecca. I'm wondering if there is a degree of Sherpa in this as well, so that there is some kind of real-time thing that can happen. I know we've toyed with the ideas of office hours, or it could be
It could be the simple kind of IM that you get when you chat with the cable company.
Right. I was about to get into a chat. It could be just a chat that part of a way of engaging that people have is on Tuesday at noon, I get to play with the chat. If somebody pops in, I can have a conversation with them around something. But I'm just thinking, people learn in so many different ways, and people engage in so many different ways. And what we're really looking at here is a lot of different ways of addressing people who are at many different places in their life continuum, etc.
Well, to me, what I'm realizing here is that if we're looking at next conversations, that the next conversations around what would it take to show the many ways that people can engage, connect, that we can welcome, that we can invite, that it goes both ways. What would people need to know to engage? What would they need to feel to engage? What would they need to have? What would it take to feel that? So there's that whole question. And we've touched on much of that in the first couple of conversations that we had. But re-looking at it through that lens of actually having a place that says, here's all the different ways. figuring out what are I'm thinking granularly like you are, Dimitri,
Yeah.
of the what are the different ways, and what is all that we're doing, and what are the various places that people can touch and feel that. And the second question being, what can they expect when they click and say, I'd love to be part of this, or hi, I'm doing X, or I've got this really cool project and I'd like to talk to somebody. What can people expect when they engage?
Mm-hmm.
And just being very, very clear about what those expectations are. Third, what systems will we have in place to meet those expectations?
And we're really feeling that just in this short span of this week alone, because the inquiries and interest and engagement huge, so it's continuing to pick up the pace, I guess, pick up more people coming wanting to engage.
Yeah. And to meet those expectations, what would we need to have? We would need to have folks who can help meet those expectations. What would those folks need to know? What would they need to understand? What would they need to have? And that coming back to all they need to have is their own story and a route to where other information is. Oh, you want to know about our classes? It's over here. And here's 7 humans that are on call so that when Joni is the Sherpa and somebody says, hi, I'd like to get more engaged in X, and the system is that Joni is the one who says, hi, I'm so glad you're here. I want to tell you what this has meant to me. Tell me what you're interested in. I'm interested in taking a class. Joni has a list of 10 people who she can connect that person with. So again, that flow chart needs to really be how each person who is part of this system can meet those expectations. And decision trees. If somebody wants X, I go here, and here's what's available there. And if somebody wants Y, I go here, and here's what's available there. And it's putting those, and this is such a huge part of our restructuring. I can't even start to, this is the how of the restructuring. So we started out with a monthly contribution campaign, and we wound up restructuring the whole damn organization. That's never happened before here.
And it's in the last 5 minutes, as it usually works that way.
That's because in the last 5 minutes we decide we've done, and we make it the last 5 minutes. So I'm not.
I think our friend Rebecca's a little bit on the frozen side.
She's frozen.
She'll be back.
Let's unfreeze her.
There
She's
she is.
unfrozen.
Yay!
She's
This is the how of the restructuring, and Hildy was frozen with her hands behind her head.
I was frozen, just like this. My head. Yeah, no, I just love the fact that that this is what the restructuring is all about, and that we started out with talking about a monthly contributions campaign, and we wound up restructuring the whole damn organization. Not done. Yeah, but I'm very, very excited that I guess I'm very excited that there are people who continue to want to provide monthly support for Creating the Future, and that they are, that in many, many cases, they are so excited about the fact that they provide monthly support that they want to be champions for others to do so. So I'm thinking, for instance, of Mark Pittman, who in the Facebook group consultants several months ago or recently talked about, and I don't even remember what the context
I'm going to
was.
step out.
Go ahead, talked about ... or you could follow my lead and become a monthly contributor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm loving the fact that it is not because we have a campaign but because people can step in where they feel comfortable to step in.
And I like how, you know, in all the different ways you can step in, be a part, get engaged, contribute, is right there is a monthly contributor. There's, you know, it stands there just as equal as all these different places. And you can say yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And there'll be the people also who will, I just imagine it, the more people who are sharing their stories with other people, who will be so moved by the impact that has changed good in someone's life. And that for people to be able to come to our website and see the roadmap and say, you know what, I just want to go right there because I want to give, because look where her life is going now. And that means something to me. And they'll know where to go. And, you know, and they'll also know what to expect. So it's I don't know.
Yeah, this is,
It's everything. It's all interconnected, as we know. And that's the beauty. Whatever we're building here is the here. It's the everything.
yeah, that's what feels right. This feels right.
Mm-hmm.
This feels right. This feels aligned with who we are. And then it's, yeah. And I hate to lose Dimitri during our reflections, but we have my mother's small copper fountain on Craigslist, and someone is coming to buy my mother's fountain. Yeah. So, yeah, my entire reflection is that this just feels right. Like this, yeah. Because it was that shoving this thing into this thing that didn't feel right.
Yeah.
It was all about a doing thing, and this is a way of being. And to have systems that support that way of being, so that people feel that at every point, that's the point that we're, okay. What are you feeling? What is aha-ing and popping for you?
I love where we went, and we only could go there if we took the time to get there. You know, that's what, and I love how this is fueling the restructuring. Like all of these conversations are, hey, we've gone, we're going to build off of that. Here's where we're at, guys, because it's 2017. Here we come.
Well, and just having the beauty of this conversation is it was all around the building of those networks of people who already care.
Mm-hmm.
And that we know that if we create the space and the systems that empower them to go out and be in their own way how they feel aligned to the mission of bringing out the best in other people, then this mission will happen, and probably in ways we never ever could have predicted in a million zillion years.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
It is.
All right. Well, I'm so grateful to you for facilitating this. This is
we're all a co-facilitation. So yes, thank you. And so we will continue this very rich conversation about a way of being.
Next time. So as you're watching this, here's your assignment. If you're watching this, or if you're listening on an MP3. Go to the blog post where you found this and put your thoughts down there. Also, if you're watching it on YouTube, put it in the comments. If you found this on social media someplace, scribble your thoughts, send us an email. All of the million ways that you can get hold of us, and continue to be part of this conversation.
See you next time.